The sharp wind howled between the twisted trees of the forest. Adam Foster squeezed his fingers around the steering wheel of his truck, his eyes fixed on the dirt road that stretched ahead. He had already directed for hours, leaving behind the last inhabited city before venturing into the depths of the National Forest Unlocks in Oregon. Your destination? A forgotten trail, known only by stories muttered among the few residents of the region. The tip of an old college colleague, a geologist named Mark Holloway, who had shared with Adam a rumor that circulated among local hunters. It was spoken of a hidden lake, inaccessible along any official path, where the waters were so crystal clear that they reflected the sky as a perfect mirror. But what had really aroused his curiosity was not the beauty of the place, but the obscure legend that involved it. They say a three-headed dog protects that lake. Who tries to get there never come back. Mark smiled sideways, but his gaze showed that he wasn't kidding. Adam didn't believe these superstitions. As a photographer of a nature and independent documentary filmmaker, he has heard numerous legends about isolated places and has always found that reality was much simpler. Lack of information, fear, and coincidences transformed common forests into scenarios of folk terror. Still, something in that story intrigued him. The mystery, the unknown. This was the kind of challenge that moved it. And before we continue with this intriguing story, be sure to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. This helps us bring more content like this to you. Now, let's go back to the story. The road became increasingly difficult to go through, holes and roots exposed by shaking his truck. The cellular signal had been gone miles, and the GPS indicated only a vast green space without demarcated trails. Finally, he stopped. According to his notes, the entrance point of the abandoned trail should be about 500 meters, hidden between the trees. Adam got out of the vehicle, adjusted his backpack, and checked the equipment. Professional camera, flashlight, compass, survival knife, and 3-day supplies. His plan was to explore the trail during the day, set up camp near the lake, and return on the third day with images that could yield a great documentary. He went on foot, entering the dense forest. The first thing that caught your attention was silence. No birds of birds, no small animals between the leaves, only the sound of his own steps over the damp earth and dry branches crackling under his weight. Forests used to be alive, noisy, but this one seemed dead. As he advanced, he found signs that the trail was actually used before. Trees with marks of old cuts, stones that seemed to have been rearranged by human hands, a broken glass bottle covered with moss. But everything indicated that no one had been through a long time ago. So something unexpected happened. A strong and metallic smell impregnated the thick and nauseating air. Blood. Adam frowned and followed the smell until he found the carcass of a wiped deceased deer. The animal was torn in a brutal way. It was not a common predator attack. The bite marks were deep and spread in a chaotic way, as if they had come from different directions at the same time. He swallowed hard, photographed the scene, and kept walking, trying to ignore the cold shiver on the back of his neck. After a few hours of walking, Adam found something unexpected. An abandoned cabin, lost between the trees. The wood was worn out of time, and the windows had been covered with makeshift boards. He approached cautiously, testing the rusty handle. The door opened with a long, dragged creak. The interior was full of dust and wreckage. There were old furniture, a stone fireplace, and papers scattered on the floor. By examining more closely, Adam realized that they were old diaries. Some were so deteriorated that they were illegible, but others still had understandable excerpts. He took one of the notebooks and read it low. "We heard the growls again tonight. Billy and I were silent, holding the weapons, but we knew there was no way to fight. He's hunting us. It's not a wolf, it's not a bear. I saw his eyes shining in the dark. 3 eyes of eyes, God help me." Adam felt a chill climb the spine. Another diary mentioned something even stranger. The footprints appear and disappear in the middle of nowhere, as if he didn't follow rules of this world. Billy wanted to escape, but I said we would be. Now he disappeared. There was no screams, just the sound of leaves moving. I know I'm the next one. A crash outside made Adam drop the notebook. He pulled out his flashlight and ran to the door, illuminating the darkness. Nothing, but then he realized something. The leaves that covered the floor were rimped, as if something big had circled the cabin a few minutes ago. The feeling of being observed was suffocating. He closed the door and decided to spend the night there. That night, while trying to sleep in a corner of the cabin, Adam was awakened by a peculiar sound. 3 heavy breaths. 3 different patterns of inhalation and exhalation, perfectly synchronized. Your heart shot. He got up slowly and peered through a crack from the window. It was then that he saw. On the edge of the forest, just beyond the scope of the moonlight, 3 pairs of eyes shone in the darkness, fixed directly into it. There was no doubt. The legend thing was real. Adam Foster felt his heart beat so strong that he seemed to echo inside the cabin. The 3 bright eyes were still there, immovable, watching him. He forced himself to breathe slowly. Maybe they were just wolves. Maybe your mind was preaching pieces, but deep down he knew it was none of these options. Something was wrong, very wrong. He slowly took his camera, adjusted the lens to capture the low light and took a picture. Flash illuminated the darkness for a brief second, and then the eyes disappeared. There was no sound of steps, there was no rustle of leaves. It was as if the thing was simply gone in the air. Adam cringed against the cabin wall, squeezing his fists. He had faced danger situations before, crossed predators, dominated trails, almost attacked by a bear once. But I had never felt something like this. An instinctive, primitive fear that made each cell of his body scream to run from there. But he didn't run. Instead, he took a deep breath and turned on the camera to review the photo he had taken. The image was completely black. He frowned and tried to increase the shine. Nothing. As if the picture had been taken with the lens cover closed, but he knew he wasn't. Adam swallowed hard. The thing did not want to be registered. He decided that the best thing to do was rest and continue exploration at dawn. But sleep never came. Around 3 in the morning, the sound began. First, it was a mild rustle with the leaves moving in the wind, but the air was still. Then came the steps. Heavy steps, very heavy to be of any ordinary animal. They looked disordered. First a strong impact, then 2 minors shortly thereafter, as if the thing was walking in an unnatural way. Adam held her breath. The steps circulated the cabin slowly. Testing. He closed his eyes and squeezed his fists, forcing himself not to make any sound. Perhaps it was absolutely silent. The thing left. Time passed. The steps diminished. And then stopped. The silence returned, but the feeling of being observed did not disappear. The dawn brought with it a thick mist that involved the forest as a ghostly cloak. Adam took his backpack and decided to travel. The trail that would take to the lake was virtually non-existent, covered by roots and dense vegetation. With each step, he felt like invading a forbidden place, a place that should not be discovered. About 2 hours later, he found something peculiar. A stone formation, arranged in a perfect circle. In the center, a flat stone slab, covered with moss and carvings almost erased by time. He approached and cleared part of the surface with his hand. The symbols were strange, incomprehensible, but what caught your attention was the figure in the middle, a 3-headed dog. Adam took the camera and took some pictures, mentally writing down the location. He didn't know what that altar meant, but someone built him there for a reason. As he kept his equipment, he noticed something beside the stones. Footprints, 3 sets of footprints, overlapping each other. He followed them for a few meters until, abruptly, they stopped in the middle of nowhere, as if the creature that made them had disappeared in the air. After another hour of walking, Adam finally reached the lake. The place was even more impressive than he imagined. The water reflected the grey sky like a mirror, without any ripple. No bird flying over him. No sound of frogs or insects. It was as if the lake was frozen in time. Adam set up his tripod and adjusted the lens to take the first photos. That's when he realized his reflection, or rather, the reflexes behind him. In the reflection of the water, he saw 3 monstrous heads of black hair and bright yellow eyes hovering right behind him. His body froze. He was being observed all the time. He turned into a sudden movement, pulling the knife from the backpack. Nothing. But then a cold breeze blew at the back of her neck, and at that moment a hoarse and serious voice echoed, coming from all directions at the same time, a voice that should not exist. "You shouldn't be here!" The voice was guttural, loaded with a weight that Adam could not understand. She echoed like muffled thunder, as if the forest herself was whispering her warning. The photographer froze, feeling the blood freezing in his veins. I was alone, or at least it should be. He turned over his heels, his eyes scouring the dense forest behind him. Nothing. The wind blew again, dragging dried leaves on the floor. And then he heard breaths, 3 distinct inhalation and exhalation patterns, close enough to feel the hot air touching his skin. His body moved before his mind could sue. In a pure adrenaline impulse, Adam took his camera and fired the flash behind himself. For a brief second, the intense light illuminated the darkness between the trees, and he saw the black silhouette of a gigantic dog, 3 huge and muscular heads, the hair like it was ready to attack. Yellow eyes shone with fury, prey exposed on silent robe. But the worst of all was not to see him. It was realizing that the creature was too close. If it were an ordinary animal, I would have advanced, but that thing was just watching, as if testing Adam's reaction. The photographer ran. With his muscles burning and irregular breathing, he threw himself on the trail where he had come, the branches scratching his skin, his feet sinking to the damp floor. Behind him, the growl echoed in the forest, accompanied by heavy and irregular steps. The thing was chasing him. Adam ran as much as he could, but soon realized something even scarier. The trail made no sense. He should be following the same path to which he had come. But the trees looked different. The reference points that had memorized were wrong. It was as if the forest had become around it. His lungs burned with tiredness, but he forced his legs to continue. He knew he couldn't stop. Not with that thing behind him. Suddenly, the soil under his feet gave in. Adam felt the world spin while his body was thrown downhill, rolling through a steep ravine, stones and roots cutting his skin. He hit hard on something solid, and the pain exploded in his head before everything was dark. He didn't know how long he was unconscious. When she opened her eyes, the forest looked different. The mist was denser, and the smell in the air was older, like wetland mixed with something metallic. And then he saw, around it, symbols recorded on the floor, similar to those of the altar he had found before. But now, they were shining with a weak red light. And standing before him, the 3-headed dog watched him in silence. He didn't growl anymore. I just waited. And that's when Adam understood. The creature was not just a monster, he was a guardian. The diaries in the cabin spoke about a ritual of submission. If he could show himself worthy, he might not be killed. He had no other choice. With his body sore, Adam knelt in the center of the circle and lowered his head, avoiding direct eye contact. The silence was absolute. The seconds dragged on as hours. Then the sound of footsteps approached. Strong, heavy. The creature's warm breath went against his back of his neck. Adam cleared his eyes, waiting for the final blow, but he never came. The serious voice echoed again, now less aggressive, almost respectful. "You don't belong to this place. Go." And then the world darkened. Adam woke up with his face against the ground floor. The brightness of the symbols was disappeared. The forest now looked normal. The disturbing silence was replaced by the sound of birds and insects. He was alone. His body hurt, but it was whole. There were no signs of the creature. Trying to sue what had happened, he took his camera and opened the photo gallery. All the images he had taken from the lake, the altar, the creature, were blurred, distorted, unrecognizable. It was as if none of that was real, but Adam knew it out, and when looking at his own reflection on the phone screen, he noticed something. 3 thin, identical scars scratched their neck, the 3-headed dog mark, and he knew that it would never leave him. Adam Foster faced his reflection on the phone screen, the fixed look in the 3 thin scars that marked his neck. They were not there before. Her heart was hitting hard, her still unzipped breath of whatever had happened. He ran his fingers over the marks, feeling his skin slightly high. It didn't hurt, it didn't bleed, but they were there as a silent reminder that the creature had let him live, but not without consequences. He needed to get out of there, now. His body hurt all the impacts of the fall, but he forced himself to get up. The forest looked normal again. The corner of the birds echoed between the trees, and the wind blew gently, as if none of that had happened. But Adam knew that this forest was not like the others. He checked his backpack. The camera was there, the cell phone too, but no signal. He needed to move on and find his truck before the night fell again. He started walking. But something was wrong. Adam continued in the direction that he believed the exit of the forest, but the more he walked, the more the surroundings seemed to be repeated. A tree fallen in the middle of the way. A stone covered with a moss in peculiar shape. A clearing with reddish leaves. He turned over his heels. It had passed by before. And then something occurred to him. He was stuck. The idea made your throat dry. He took a deep breath, trying to keep calm. He could be disoriented, with adrenaline still messing up his perception of space. This has happened before, in other forests, with other explorers. It was enough to focus, remember the position of the sun, and continue in the right direction. But when he looked up, he felt a shiver on his spine. The sky was still. The clouds, which should be in constant motion, were completely immovable, like a painting, as if time in that part of the forest did not flow like the rest of the world. And then he heard that voice. "You came back." The same serious and guttural voice as before. But this time she didn't come from a single point. She was around him, above, below, as if the forest itself was talking. Adam swallowed hard. He didn't come back. The forest brought him back. The floor under his feet trembled slightly. Leaves began to fall from the trees, spinning in the air as if an invisible whirlwind had graduated. And then he saw him again. The creature emerged from the mist, emerging between the trees as a colossal shadow. The black hair was thick and cluttered, the 3 heads moving independently, sniffing the air. The eyes shone like living embers. But unlike the last time, the creature was not just watching, she was advancing. Adam felt the adrenaline explode in his body. Running was not an option. The forest would bring him back. He needed to understand. "What do you want from me?" His own voice came out more hoarse than he expected. The creature stopped a few meters from him. The 3 heads leaned in different directions, analyzing it. Then the voice resonated again, but it didn't come from the monster's mouths. It came from within your own mind. "Prove yourself." Adam felt a chill. "Prove yourself? As?" Before he could react, the creature launched himself against him. The impact was brutal. Adam was thrown to the floor, his breath cut by the shock. Before he could get up, he felt sharp claws pressing his chest, holding it firmly against the ground. The hot breath of the creature was unbearable. The smell of wet earth, iron, and something older and indescribable dominated his senses. One of the heads approached his face, the white fangs a few inches from his throat, and it was there at that moment that Adam understood. It was a test. If he reacted with fear, he would die. If I tried to fight, it would die. The only choice was to surrender. With difficulty, he raised his arms and touched his creature's rough hair. A gesture of respect. The heads stopped. The yellow eyes shone intensely, analyzing it. Then the pressure on your chest decreased. The three-headed dog stepped back, releasing it. Adam sat slowly, feeling his breathing back to normal. His body trembled, but he was alive. The creature remained there, observing, and then it disappeared in the mist. He didn't walk into the forest, did not dissolve in the air. She simply ceased to exist, and at that moment Adam knew he was free. He got up and looked around. The forest looked different. The trees were where they should be. The way to your truck was now visible. The heaven, once immovable, now moved again. Adam took a deep breath, smelling the woods, the wind blowing against his face. He passed the test, but something inside it had changed forever. Adam Foster left the forest with his whole body throbbing, but alive. His brain still processed everything that had happened. The three-headed dog was real. The legend was not just a story told by the residents of the region. He turns it with his own eyes. He did not know how long he had passed since the last contact with the creature. But the sun was now higher in the sky, and the path that once looked like an endless maze was now clear. The forest no longer looked distorted. The illusion had dissipated. Adam held on a fallen trunk to support the injured knee. Her muscles shouted with exhaustion, his head throbbed, and his throat was dry like sand. He needed to leave before something else happened. Each step was a fight against pain, but he moved on. It didn't look back. Arriving on the dirt road where he left his truck, Adam felt almost overwhelming relief. The vehicle was exactly where it had left it. The glass covered with dust, leaves accumulated on the windshield. He threw the backpack on the passenger seat, took a bottle of water, and drank large sips before turning on the engine. The roar of the engine broke the scary silence of the forest. He wanted to get out of there as soon as possible, but before engaging the defendant, something made him hesitate. In the rearview mirror, he saw something carved on the dirt floor right behind his car. He got out of the vehicle, feeling the air heavier. As it approached, the stomach rolled. There were huge footprint marks, 3 overlapping sets forming a circular pattern. The same pattern that turns near the stone altar. It was as if something had been there, waiting. He looked around, but the forest was silent. No threatening sound, no movement. But he knew he wasn't alone. Even if the creature could no longer be seen, she was still there. Adam returned to the truck, closed the door tightly, and stepped on the accelerator. The dust went up as he walked away from the forest, leaving behind the footprints and mysteries that could never be explained. After driving for hours without stopping, Adam finally arrived at the roadside hotel where he was staying before leaving for the trail. He threw herself on the bed without even taking off her shoes. The whole body hurt, but his mind didn't turn off. "The first thing you did was get your camera. I needed to see the photos. I needed evidence." He turned on the equipment, sailed the files, and felt a chill climbing the spine. All the photos were there, but none showed the creature. The images of the lake, the forest, the altar of stones, all were clear. But each time he advanced to the parts where he should have registered the three-headed dog, the camera screen was dark, as if something prevented the creature's visual record. Your heart hit rapidly. He tried to recover the files, adjust exposure, and increase the shine. Nothing. It was as if it had never existed. He took the cell phone and looked at his reflection on the dark screen. The scars were still there. The only proof that this really happened was in his own skin. In the following days, Adam tried to tell his story to some friends, but no one believed. Perhaps it was a delirium caused by tiredness. You hit your head on the fall. It may have hallucinated. There are no records of this creature anywhere. But Adam knew the truth. The brand around your neck was a symbol. The three-headed dog didn't kill him, but it didn't let him completely escape. Somehow, he was now part of that legend. Before leaving the state of Oregon, Adam stopped in a coffee in the nearest city to review his material one last time. He took his camera, slid through the files, and realized that there was an extra photo, one he didn't remember to have taken. Her stomach rolled up as she opened it. The image showed himself sleeping inside the abandoned cabin. But the detail that froze his blood was the reflection in the window behind him. 3 pairs of yellow eyes watched his sleep. The 3-headed dog was there all the time. Adam Foster felt his fingers tremble as he held the camera. That photo made no sense. He had never left the camera in automatic mode. No one else was in the cabin, and the creature should not appear in images. But there it was. His 3 yellow-eyed pairs shone in the reflection of the window behind where he slept, as if the 3-headed dog watched him from the beginning. He swallowed hard. Will the creature let him live because he wanted to? Or why did you have other plans for him? He looked around the coffee, the noise of people talking, the cup of cups, the radio playing any song. Everything seemed too normal, but he didn't feel normal. Since leaving that forest, something inside was different. The scar on his neck scratched constantly, as if something under his skin tried to manifest himself. Your sleep was never the same. And always, everywhere he had the same sensation, that it was being observed. Days later, Adam took a flight back to New York. His apartment, small and messy, seemed even tighter than before. He tried to go back to the routine, edit photos, organize files, prepare new projects. But nothing seemed to import more. The only thing I could think was that look. Whenever he blinked, he saw the 3 pairs of yellow eyes. When I walked around town at night, I felt steps behind him, but there was never anyone. And worse of all, dreams began. In the first dream, Adam was back to the lake. The water reflected the grey sky, and the forest was silent. He looked at his own reflection, and he saw the scars in his deepest neck. As if the marks opened more and more, revealing something hidden under your skin. In the second dream, I was in the cabin again, but this time he was not alone. The creature was there, sitting in the dark corner of the room, watching, always watching. And then came the third dream. In the dream, he was no longer Adam Foster. He smelled the forest, the muffled sounds of the trees, the taste of the blood of old hunters in his prey. And when he looked at his reflection in the lake, he saw 3 heads where his own should be. He woke up screaming. Adam realized that he had never really left that forest. The 3-headed dog not only let him live, he had chosen him. He now carried something from that entity within him, and with each passing day, I felt that it was changing. His senses were sharper. He heard things that others didn't hear, via shadows where no one else saw. His hunger had increased, and his patience had decreased, and then came the moment he finally understood. One night, Adam woke up without knowing why. He looked at the clock. It was 3 in the morning. His throat was dry. He got up for water, but when he passed the bathroom mirror, something was wrong. His reflection blinked, a second after him, and then the eyes shone yellow. Adam walked away, his heart hammering the ribs. The reflection smiled, but Adam not. And at that moment, a voice echoed inside his mind. Come home. The forest called him, and he had no choice. Adam Foster disappeared 3 days later. His truck was found abandoned by the roadside near the entrance of the trail where it all began. People sought for him for weeks, helicopters, rescue teams, sniffer dogs. But no trail has been found. The only strange thing was a group of local hunters who reported hearing strange howls from the forest shortly after the disappearance. They were not wolves. They were not bears. The sounds were deep, triple, as if 3 different voices howled at the same time, and so the legend of the 3-headed dog surrounding deserted trails continued. But now, with a new guardian, winter arrived at Oregon, covering the forest with a thin layer of snow. For months, no one stepped on that part of the woods until a forest guard named Richard Bowen received a complaint. A group of illegal hunters would have entered the forbidden area near the lake. He took his equipment and followed the trail, prepared to find the invaders. But when he got close to the lake, he saw something that stopped him at the same time. There were footprints on the floor, not of humans, neither of bears, wolves, or any other known animal. They were large, heavy footprints with deep marks on the ground, and the strangest, 3 overlapping sets forming a circular pattern. Richard felt a shiver on his spine. He looked around and realized that the forest was completely silent. No birds, no wind, lifeless. It was then that he saw a figure on the edge of the lake. A man, wearing handy and dirty clothes, kneeling in the bank, looking at his own reflection in the frozen water. Richard approached slowly. "Sir," he called, trying to control the tension in his voice. The man did not answer, but when Richard took another step, he turned. The forest guard arrested his breath. The man's face was familiar, very familiar. Even with a growing beard and back eyes, Richard recognized Adam Foster. He was alive. "My God," Richard whispered. You have been missing for a year." Adam stared at him, but something about him was wrong. The eyes, before they were brown, now they shone in a deep, almost supernatural yellow. And when he finally spoke, his voice came out hoarse, spent, as if he has not spoken for months. "I no longer belong to this world." Richard felt a chill up his spine. "What happened to you?" Adam looked at his own hands, turning them slowly. The skin looked more rough, darker, as if it were becoming something else. "The Guardian chose me." Richard felt the dread grow within him. "We need to get him out of here. I will call help." But Adam denied his head. "It's too late for me." He stepped back, the snow grinding under his feet. So Richard heard something scary. A sound that he would never forget. 3 deep breaths coming out of a single body. Adam Foster smiled lightly, a sad farewell smile. "Tell them never to come back here." And then he disappeared in the forest. Richard Bowen never saw him again. No one has ever seen him again. But that night the residents of the city heard a sound coming from the distant forest. An howl, strong, deep, and they understood. The old Guardian is gone, and a new one took its place. What did you think of this outcome? Leave your opinion in the comments. We love to know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like to support our work. We see each other in the next video.